Chapter 10. The Vision. Octavia's emerald green eyes lock onto Royce's, piercing through every guarded part of him, unraveling the worlds he didn't realize he had built. The world around them fades into insignificance. The distant sounds of the village, the warm afternoon light filtering through the window, even the exhaustion clinging to their bones. None of it matters, only this moment. Royce's breath catches as he watches her, the way her chest rises and falls with each measured breath, the way her lips part ever so slightly as if she's waiting, expecting. He swallows hard, his pulse hammering in his ears as he inches closer. Octavia doesn't pull away. She doesn't hesitate. Instead, she mirrors his movements, her gaze never leaving his, drawn to him as if by some invisible force neither of them fully understand. And then finally, his lips meet hers. The moment is gentle at first, hesitant, as if testing the reality of what they both longed for. But as Octavia presses closer, as Royce tangles his fingers in her hair and deepens the kiss, any uncertainty dissolves into something undeniable. A warmth spreads through him, something more than attraction, more than desire. It's a feeling that reaches deep into his soul, a quiet knowing. This is right. This is inevitable. But then, a sharp pull in his mind. The warmth of the kiss vanishes. The room around him melts away, and suddenly he is somewhere else entirely. The great hall. He stands before the throne, but this time, he isn't just watching. He is seated upon it. The weight of the crown presses against his brow, his hands gripping the armrest as if to steady himself. The vision plays out just as it had before. The joyous laughter of those gathered, the banners swaying in an unseen breeze. But this time, something is different. He slowly turns his head, nervous to see who is seated beside him. Seated at his left, poised, yet strong, is Octavia. Her eyes hold the same fire they do now, but there's something else, something deeper. She's not merely there, she belongs there. The vision shatters. Reality rushes back in, and suddenly, Royce is back in the small house. Octavia is still pressed against him, lips still warm against his. But the moment is no longer the same. A strange energy courses through him, a knowing that wasn't there before. He pulls back quickly, his breath uneven. Octavia blinks, startled by his sudden retreat. "What is it?" she asks, searching his face. For a moment, Royce doesn't know what to say. How could he possibly explain? But then a slow smile spreads across his lips. The weight of the vision, instead of burning him, fills him with an almost reckless certainty. "It's nothing," he says, shaking his head, the grin never leaving his face. "I've just wanted to do that for a long time." Octavia studies him, searching for some hidden message between his words. For a brief second, he wonders if she somehow saw it too, if she felt the same pull that he did. But then, she simply lets out a small laugh, shaking her head in amusement. "You're impossible," she murmurs before shoving him back onto the bed. Royce lets out a surprised chuckle, watching as she paces to the other side of the room. With effortless grace, she reaches for the straps on of her armor, unfastening them one by one. The sound of metal and leather shifting echoes through the space. She pulls her belt free and turns back to him, eyes gleaming with something unreadable. "Our lives have changed drastically since we met." Octavia's voice is quiet, but there's a weight to it, a vulnerability. Royce isn't used to hearing from her. She stands a few feet away, her arms wrapped around herself, as if shielding herself from something unseen. "We find ourselves in uncertain times, in unfamiliar place, with war looming on the horizon." She pauses, her emerald eyes flickering with thought. Royce watches. propping himself up with one elbow. We must not let this get to us. We must not let this get in the way of what's to come, she continues, her voice steady, but laced with something she can't quite place. Fear, maybe, or resignation. Royce frowns. What do you mean? Octavia turns, pacing slowly back toward the bed. She stops just beside him, looking down with an expression softer than he's ever seen before. When things get dire, when times are tough, we can't let this cloud our judgment. She sits down beside him, the bed shifting beneath her. Close enough for Royce to feel the warmth of her presence, but still distant in a way that unsettles him. Promise me, this won't cause you to make any foolish decisions, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Royce studies her for a long moment, reading between the lines. This isn't just about the war, it's about them, about what they are becoming, about the way love has a way of making men reckless. His throat tightens, but he nods. I promise. His small, relieved smile tugs at Octavia's lips, but Royce isn't blind. There's still uncertainty there, a quiet war waging behind her eyes. He wonders if she's trying to convince herself just as much as him. Before he can say anything else, she leans in, pressing a soft kiss to his forehead. The warmth of her lips lingers as she pulls away. Good. Her voice is softer, now gentler. Now let's get some rest. She shifts onto the bed, settling in beside him. Royce follows suit, pulling her close without hesitation. The exhaustion that has weighed on them for days begins to take hold, but not before Royce takes a moment to savor this. Her body pressed against him, her head resting just beneath his chin, the faint rhythm of the breath against his skin. His arm tightens around her, but even as sleep pulls at him, his mind lingers on two things: her words and the vision he saw during the kiss. Octavia had made him promise not to let the love cloud his judgment. But what if loving her was the clearest judgment he had ever made? His thoughts fade as sleep finally takes him. His last conscious sensation, the steady heartbeat of a woman he now knew he could never let go. The two sleep through the rest of the day and well into the night, exhaustion clinging to them like a heavy fog. The comfort of each other's warmth, the safety of the small home, even if temporary, allows the bodies to surrender to the rest they so desperately need. Royce stirs first, roused by the distant sound of villagers waking. Outside, muffled voices and rhythmic clang of blacksmiths' hammers signal the start of another day. A scent of damp earth lingers in the air, remnants of the night's passing rain. For a moment, he simply lies there, staring at the wooden beams above, letting his mind swift through the whirlwind of events that have led him here. The battles, the loss, the uncertainty of what lies ahead. And then, of course, Octavia. His gaze drifts down to her, still fast asleep beside him. Her dark hair fans out against the pillow, her face softened in sleep, the usual sharpness in her expression replaced with something peaceful, something rare. Royce allows himself a brief moment of indulgence, watching the steady rise and fall of her breath before carefully slipping out of bed. He moves quietly, not wanting to wake her just yet. The fire in the small hearth has died down to glowing embers, casting faint flickers on warmth throughout the space. Royce sets to work rekindling it, placing fresh wood onto the coals before turning his attention to preparing breakfast. The scent of simmering broth and grains fills the hut as he stirs the small kettle over the fire. His mind wanders as he works, replaying the vision he saw, the promise Octavia made him give, and the weight of what's coming. Every moment with her now seems fragile, precious. One misstep, one rash decision, and it could all slip away. A soft rustle behind him draws him out of his thoughts. He turns to see Octavia shifting in bed, stretching lazily beneath the blankets before her eyes flutter open. A slow, sleepy smile spreads across her lips as she takes in the sight of him tending to breakfast. Would you look at this? She muses, her voice still laced with drowsiness. It's about time you made us breakfast. Roy smirks, stirring the pot. Who said I made enough for you? Octavia rolls her eyes and pushes herself upright, running a hand through her hair. You wouldn't dare, she mutters before swinging her legs over the side of the bed and rising to her feet. He watches as she moves across the room, her steps slow and unguarded, the remnants of sleeping still clinging to her. She grabs a bowl of water, splashing some onto her face before shaking off the cord. Royce pours 2 bowls from the steaming pot and places them in front of her at the small wooden table. They eat in comfortable silence, the warmth of the meal soothing away the last traces of sleep. Royce steals glances at her between bites, noticing the way her fingers drum absently against the side of the bowl, her gaze distant, as if her mind is elsewhere. When she finishes, Octavia pushes back her chair and stands, the quiet scrape of wood against the stone breaking the stillness. Without a word, she moves to the other side of the room, where her armor and weapons rest against the wall. Royce frowns slightly as she begins fastening the leather straps, the slow, methodical way she tightens each buckle. There's something deliberate in her movements, something hesitant. Where are you going? He asks, his voice breaking through the hush. She doesn't answer right away, adjusting the belt at her waist, checking the placement of her dagger. Only when everything is in place does she finally glance at him. I'm going to gather a few supplies, she simply says. I won't be long. But there's something in her tone, something Royce can't quite place. A flicker of hesitation, a weight behind her words that doesn't sit right with him. His eyes narrow slightly. Octavia? Before he can press her, she turns swiftly toward the door, pulling it open with ease that suggests she is in a hurry to leave. The cool morning air sweeps inside, rustling the edges of her cloak as she steps through. And just like that, she is gone. It's gone. How's it going, Hazel? Roy sits motionless at the table, his fingers absently tracing the rim of his bowl as curiosity nods at him. Octavia moves through the waking streets of Kolsvik, her breath rising in pale wisp against the crisp morning air. The scent of the damp earth and distant sea salt clings to the wind, mingling the faint traces of burning wood from the hearth stirring in the life in the homes around her. She pulls her cloak tighter around her shoulders, ignoring the cold as she strides forward. The city is beginning to shake off the last remnants of sleep. Merchants haul crates of goods into their stalls, the muffled sounds of conversation and laughter slowly building into the familiar hum of morning life. Horses whicker as the owners prepare for travel, the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith hammer ringing out in steady intervals. Octavia moves through it all, her steps purposeful, yet laced with certainty. She turns down a quieter street, her boots tapping against the uneven stone. Though Helga had given her a tour of the first day of Kolsvik, she still isn't certain if she's heading in the right direction. The deeper she moves into the narrow pass away from the city square, the more unfamiliar the surroundings become. The well-kept homes and sturdy storefronts gradually give way to something older, more forgettable. Finally, she stops. The hut stands apart from the rest, sagging against itself like a relic of another time. The walls, wrapped and darkened by age, seem to groan under their own weight. Tattered cloth hangs over the entrance in place of a door, shifting slightly with the morning breeze. The windows, if they can even be called that, are small slits, barely allowing light to filter inside. The sight of it sends an uneasy prickle down her spine. Swallowing her hesitation, Octavia steps forward and pushes the heavy drapes aside. The air is thick inside, laden with the scent of dried herbs, wax, and something more metallic, something almost sour. The dim glow of candlelight flickers against the cramped walls, casting long, relentless shadows across the space. A small fire burns low in the center of the room, its embers pulsing like a dying heartbeat. Bones, feathers, and dried plants hang from the rafters, gently swaying with the swift of air from the entrance. Skulls, both human and animal, line the shelves, the hollow sockets watching from the gloom. Stand by. Never mind. A strange unease settles over her as she takes a cautious step forward. Before she can call out, a figure moves from the side of the hut, emerging from behind a dark curtain of fabric. The firelight licks across the woman's face as she steps closer, revealing sharp, angular features framed by shrieks of silver threaded hair. Ah, yes, Octavia. Her voice is low, smooth, unshaken by surprise, as if she had known all along that Octavia would come. The woman steps further into the light, the flickering flames illuminating her deep-set eyes in the intricate markings tattooed along her forearms. A slow, knowing smile pulls at her lips. I've been waiting for you. Octavia stiffens slightly, but holds her ground. There's something unsettling about the woman's gaze, something that seems to pierce through flesh and bone, peeling away layers she isn't ready to expose. The woman, Solveig, the seer Roy spoke with during the feast, gestures toward a fur pelt spread beside the fire. I need to take a drink. Hold on. Recap! Okay, we're good. Sit. Octavia hesitates, glancing once more around the eerie space, her instincts urging her to reconsider. But she forces herself forward, lowering onto the fur, her pulse steady but alert. She isn't sure if she's made the right decision coming here, but it's too late to turn back now. Octavia sits on the fur pelt beside the fire, the warmth doing little to chase away the unease crawling up her spine. Solveig watches her with knowing eyes, as if she sees straight to the questions buried deep within her heart. The flickering candlelight dances across the old woman's sharp features, casting long shadows across the bone-laden walls. You seek answers, but be warned. Knowledge does not come without a price. Solveig murmurs. Octavia shifts but says nothing. She knows this already. The woman reaches into her pouch, tied around her waist, and pulls out a handful of carved bones. Their surface is worn, smooth from years of use. She mutters something under her breath, a language Octavia does not recognize, before casting the bones onto the ground between them. They clatter against the wooden floor, coming to rest in an intricate pattern. Solveig's expression darkens. The storm approaches. Octavia stiffens. The storm. She's heard those words before, in the whispers throughout the city, in the troubled look shared between warriors prepping for battle. But something in the way Solveig says it chills her to the bone. The old woman reaches out, tracing a finger over the bones. 2 paths lie before you, she says, her voice low, reverent. One of ruin, one of salvation. You will walk the edge of the blade, Octavia, and the choices you make will determine the fate of more than just your own. The fire crackles, and for a moment the room feels smaller, suffocating. You do not stand alone, Solveig continues, her gaze sharp. He is tied to your fate. Octavia's breath catches in her throat. I've seen it, Solveig says, leaning closer. A great hall, a throne, a crown of blood. You stand at his side, but whether it's in triumph or in tragedy, that remains unseen. Octavia swallows hard. Then tell me what to do, she demands, the weight of the prophecy setting heavy on her chest. Solveig gives a small, knowing smile. The gods don't deal in certainty, child. Only possibilities. She gestures towards the loose bones once more. But I can tell you this. She picks up a small, jagged piece, holding it between her fingers. A betrayal looms. Someone close. Someone trusted. If you do not see the dagger before it's thrust, it will be too late. A cold shiver races down Octavia's spine. And Royce, she asks, barely above a whisper. Solveig's expression does not soften. He is at the center of it all. Octavia clenches her jaw. A betrayal, a throne, a choice that will shape their fate. She closes her eyes for a brief moment, steadying herself. Then I will be ready. Solveig chuckles, a sound that is neither comforting nor mocking, but something in between. We shall see. The fire crackles once more, and for a fleeting second, Octavia thinks she sees something within the flames. An image, blurred and fleeting. Royce, standing tall, his face grim. A battle raging behind him, blood on his hands. She blinks, and it is gone. Solveig holds out the palm of her hand. Octavia, having seen Royce interact with her before, knows exactly what to do. Octavia leans over the fire and licks her palm. Solveig rises. Go now. Your path has already begun to unfold. Octavia stands as well, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She turns, pushing aside the draped fabric covering the doorway, stepping back out into the cold morning air. The city is awake now, the streets bustling with movement. But Octavia barely notices. The storm was coming, and she would be ready. Royce moves through the motions of cleaning up breakfast, his hands working with practiced efficiency, while his thoughts drift elsewhere. The quiet of the hut feels unnatural. After days of battle, travel, and tension, the stillness unsettles him more than he cares to admit. The fire crackles gently in the hearth, casting flickering shadows across the wooden walls. It had been so long since he had a moment with no immediate purpose, no mission driving him forward. And yet, the freedom does not bring him comfort. It only amplifies the uncertainty pressing at the edges of his mind. His gaze shifts to the small window, watching as the light shifts outside. He considers exploring more of Kolsvik, perhaps walking the streets to familiarize himself with the city beyond its war-torn reputation. But he shakes the thought away. Octavia would return soon, and something in his guts tell him he should sit here and wait. With a sigh, he settles by the fire and pulls out one of his axes into his lap, running a stone along its edge. The rhythmic scrape of metal on stone is soothing, grounding him in the present. He focuses on the blade's edge, watching as tiny shavings of steel peel away. Then, a knock. Royce's grip tightens around the axe handle as his head snaps towards the door. The sound was firm, but not aggressive. Cautious, he calls out. Who is it? Silence. His brow furrows. He waits a moment, straining his ears. Then another knock, this time slower, more deliberate. A prickle of unease runs down his spine. Royce sets the stone aside and rises to his feet. His movements careful, measured. He keeps the axe in his hand, gripping it a little tighter as he approaches the door. Who's there? He calls again. Nothing. The air in the room seems to shift, growing heavier. Then, from the corner of his eyes, he sees the wooden door move, just slightly. The only thing keeping it shut is a simple wooden blockade he had set in place. Someone was trying to push it open. Royce stills, tilting his head as he inches closer, his muscles coiled and ready. His pulse quickens, but his expression remains calm. Another knock. This time, it's not tentative, it's forceful, violent. Royce stops in his track. The wooden planks of the door rattle under the sudden impact. The fire crackles behind him, its warmth now feeling distant. The knock comes again, rapid and unrelenting, each one striking the wood with purpose, with something just shy of desperation. And that, my friends, brings us to the first poll. The first poll. The first poll. Here we go. Time to vote. Is anyone still awake? If I did not put you all to sleep. Should Royce open the door or not open the door? What should Royce do? Get your votes in. What should Royce do? We got 5-1 to open the door. 5-1. We got about a little less than a minute. 5-2. Five to two. 6-3. Oh, we got some people voting. 7-3. You have a lot of people voting. Thank you guys for participating. We got about 10 seconds left by the time I say this. All right, open the door. Here we go. Royce exhales, his breath uneven as the lingering tension clings to his skin like a damp fog. He hesitates only for a moment before lifting the wooden blockade and pushing the door open, the hinges groaning softly in protest. Yet, on the other side, nothing is there. His eyes scan the street, searching for any sign of movement, anything that might explain the eerie presence that had stood on the other side of the door. But the city moves as it always does, oblivious. Merchants begin setting up their stalls, villagers shuffle past, deep in a quiet conversation, and the distant clang of blacksmiths' hammers rings through the air. Everything is normal. And yet, Royce knows that something was there, watching, waiting. As he continues to scan the area, movement down the street catches his eye. Octavia strides toward him, hands full of supplies, her black hair catching the morning light. She notices him standing in the doorway and offers him a warm smile. That was some rather good timing, she says lightly, stepping past him into the hut. Royce forces a smirk, but his mind is still clouded. He glances one last time at the empty streets before closing the door behind him. Yeah, Just needed a breath of fresh air is all. His voice comes out steadier than he expected, but Octavia gives a knowing. Our girl Ava. To you, Ava. Scar. Thank you. I don't know if you're listening, but Scar. I very much appreciate that. His voice comes out steadier than expected, but Octavia gives him a knowing glance, sensing something beneath his words. She sets the supplies down on the table, then rummages through a small sack, tied to her belt. Here, she says, pulling out a bundle of dried herbs. Take off your shirt. I got something for your wound. Royce sighs but obliges, pulling his tunic over his head and tossing it into the nearby chair. He sits beside Octavia as she mashes the herbs into a thick, greenish paste in a small wooden bowl, the scent of crushed leaves filling the space. She works in silence for a moment before gently unwinding the bandage from his side. Her fingers are careful, but the moment the cool air touches his raw skin, he tenses. This might sting, she warns. Royce nods, bracing himself. The moment the salve meets the wound, he inhales sharply, the sensation both soothing and biting at once. His muscles flex instinctively under her touch, and for a brief moment, despite the lingering unease in his mind, he finds himself focused on nothing but the warmth of her hands against his skin. Suddenly, a scream pierces the air. The sound is raw, filled with terror, and it sends an instant jolt through both of them. Octavia's hands freeze against his side. Their eyes meet, the unspoken question already answered in their matching expressions. Something is wrong. Royce pushes himself up, ignoring the half-applied salve as he snatches his shirt and pulls it over his head. Octavia is already moving, reaching for her dagger at her belt as they rush towards the door. The door flies open as they push through it, stepping out into the street, just in time to see a small crowd gathered a short distance away. In the center of the commotion, a woman stands trembling, her hands covering her mouth in horror. A few others stand beside her, their faces pale, eyes fixed on something at their feet. Royce and Octavia exchange a final glance before hurrying towards the scene. They push through the forming crowd, their boots kicking up dust as they near the center of the commotion. The morning air, once crisp and fresh, now feels thick, heavy with the unspoken dread. The woman who screams stands frozen, eyes wide with sheer terror. Beside her, an older man grips her shoulder, his expression grim, but it's the way the others stand. Rigid, silent, transfixed. That sends an unnatural chill down Royce's spine. And then he sees it. At their feet lies a body. A man sprawled lifeless on the cobblestone streets. His limbs are twisted unnaturally, his face contorted in a silent scream, eyes wide and vacant. But it isn't the broken body that grips Royce's breath in his chest. It's the mark. Etched deep in the man's chest, carved into flesh with meticulous precision, is a symbol. One Royce does not recognize, but somehow fears. The lines are jagged, sharp, forming a twisted sigil that seems to pulse even in the dull morning light. Dark, dried blood crust along the grooves, evidence that the wound was made before the man had died. Octavia stiffens beside him, her breath catching. Royce, she murmurs, her voice barely above a whisper. That symbol. I know. Royce cuts in, his voice grave. The murmurs of the crowd begin to rise as others notice the mark, whispers of cursed, dark magic, the old ways slipping through the air like a sickness. A man steps forward from the crowd, his movements slow and deliberate, as if pulled by some unforeseen force. The morning light casts deep shadows across his grizzled face, weathered skin stretched over sharp features, his hollow eyes burning with an unsettling intensity. His presence enough His presence alone is enough to steal the breath from those around him. The murmurs fade among the villagers, a shift in the air, a quiet tension settling over them like a storm about to break. One by one, heads turn toward him. Then he speaks. The Veil-born have returned. The words slither from his lips, not spoken in fear or warning, but with a cold, eerie reverence. His voice seems to carry through the crowd in a way that defies the natural order, sinking into the bones of those that hear it. For a moment, time itself seems to hold its breath. And then, before anyone can react, before the weight of his words can even settle, a dagger flashes. A single, brutal motion. The grieving woman barely has time to gasp as cold steel buries itself in her throat. A sickening, wet gurgle follows as crimson spills down her chest, her hands clawing uselessly at the wound. Her eyes, wired with shock, pleading for an answer, stare into the man's. But he offers nothing. No regret. No hesitation. Only purpose. Scene!